And I know we've got some of our Australians because that's why we're doing this at 4 o'clock instead of the earlier time. So we'll just make sure that they get on here. Okay, and we are recording the session. We should just let everyone know that. The session is being recorded. Mark has started it. It can be paused throughout it, but you know, if there's breakouts or something like that, but we're recording it because we do have 2 members who were unable to attend today. And so we wanted to record it so that they could watch and see all the fun that they missed, and both will be in attendance next week. Well, actually, Carol will be back tomorrow, and then Phil will be back next week.
Erin, I'm actually in another meeting right now. If you're recording it, I can probably hop in about a half an hour. Would that be okay?
Well, I think we're gonna kind of kick it off, and we're gonna do a bit of intro. So
okay,
yeah, we don't want you to miss your chance to share kind of your change experience and just kind of set the stage. I think Mark's got half an hour for that piece.
Okay,
if that's okay.
Yeah, I have an overlap of half an hour between this and another thing I'm doing. So, okay. But they're almost wrapped up in there.
Okay, thanks, Chris. And who's missing their sanity? Well, I know Suzanne is, but someone has actually put that in. Who's missing? Who is that?
I don't know for definite. Hi, it's Annabelle. I don't know for definite. I think it might be John. Right at the beginning of COVID, we were having weekly catch-ups with Deanna. And I think you guys did it as well. And one of the things was tell us something that you're missing is because of COVID, and we all had to change our names. And the only reason I'm thinking it might be him is because I actually used Zoom for the first time since then yesterday for a webinar, and I had exactly the same thing. My thing came up and the person on the course, and I think you need to change your name.
So John, if that's you.
John.
Yeah. At least show us your face, even if you're missing your sanity. Okay.
Ask to start video.
Okay, well, maybe we're just 5 after the hour. I know it's 5 after 6 in the morning for our Australian friends. So thank you for waking up so early, and everyone else, thank you for joining at the end of your day and accommodating our Australians. Challenging to try to kind of offer this globally, but really cool that we can do that and involve people across our business units. So maybe I'll just, there you are, John. There we go. Can you hear us, John? It doesn't look like it.
He did just text me saying he was having a couple of issues getting on, so I'm not sure if he can hear us yet.
Okay. Well, as he's sorting that out, I wanted to just jump on and kind of welcome everyone and introduce you to Mark Hacker. He's going to be your facilitator from HCI. And so I wanted to kind of let you know how this all came about. I attended this program in Toronto, I think it was last November. And it was a 2-day kind of intense program. So I really appreciate how they've divvied this up in smaller blocks for all of us. And what I really liked about the program is that it doesn't prescribe to one specific philosophy. So you'll see that ProSci is referenced in here. Cotter's 8-step model is referenced in here around change management. And the PMI Institute has their change management approach. And so this program really takes all the good pieces from each one of those and brings it into a really simplistic, operational model that we as HR can take out and leverage with our client groups, with our leader, within our own HR teams. And so that's what I really enjoyed about the program. And I hope that you find it, as valuable as I did. I love how everything is kind of the online format. I think, Mark, I got a binder even last year when I was in Toronto, but I know you like your binders, but so you can actually go in and see all the content and make notes right in. Of course, if you'd like to print it out, that's super cool too. Whatever you need to do to kind of take those notes and be fully present for the next 2 hours. I know it's been a long day already, so I wanted to thank you all for committing to this and building your capability within change management. So with that, I'm going to introduce Mark. So I'm going to look up at my notes here because we're pretty lucky to have Mark. There's a lot to tell you about Mark. So Mark Hacker is the managing director at the Alta Leadership Group, and it's a boutique consultancy group in Denver, Colorado. His focus is on leadership development, on talent management, and executive level coaching. His work as a senior faculty at the HCI, or Human Capital Institute, includes facilitating 7 different certification courses, including this one. And Mark has worked with several organizations to deliver the HCI content, really globally in the US, in Canada, in Europe, in Australia, in Asia, and the Caribbean. And Mark's clients in the past 2 years here in Canada have included Canada Border Services, PSP Investments, McMaster University, and Shopify. So Mark, most of his career was spent in retail, and with a big chunk of it being with Walmart. So 22 years he was with Walmart in several senior leadership roles. And his experiences ranged from running departments, kind of in the corporate office, to overseeing HR operations for a region with 20,000 employees in 18 states. He also taught graduate level courses at the University of Denver and has consulted with several organizations on human capital strategy issues. So Mark, really you'll see that his passion is about helping individuals, helping teams, and organizations reach their potential. So I know you're in very good hands. He's got a plethora of experience to share with you. And I encourage this whole team just to really dive in, ask questions, and that way we can all stay really engaged with this content. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Erin, and good morning, Australia. Good afternoon, Canada. Appreciate you all taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us over the next 4 weeks. And I'm excited because working with Erin, we broke it out into 8 2-hour chunks rather than sitting for 2 full days, or the way I'm doing it with the current group is 4 hours over 4 weeks. So I'm kind of excited about the format and having more of a bias for action with that. Like Erin said, I'm senior faculty with HCI and have been doing this for about 6 years with them. I've done about 120 different courses. It's strange not traveling, but excited that we can partner through Zoom. So where I always start is with the word talent. Because when we say the word talent, I don't know if we stop and think of it as being a strategic competitive advantage. I don't know that we look at it through a risk lens like our executive team might. So the idea, when you use the risk lens and you look at it, if it's left unattended, it can be a risk management issue. And in some cases, it can be a business continuity issue. But I think the other place to start is by saying the obvious, that these are interesting times. It's probably the biggest understatement of the day to say you and ATCO are dealing with lots of change right now, detailed change, complex change in the business environment, change at home. I would submit that the world today is in a VUCA state, V-U-C-A. So if I throw that acronym out there, VUCA, V-U-C-A, either open mic or chat, whichever you're comfortable with. Who's heard that before or can tell us what the V, the U, the C, and the A are? Chat or open mic, either one, or Google.
B or V? Sorry, Mark.
The V was?
Oh, sorry, I wasn't sure if you said B or V, but it was V. Okay.
Oh, V as in
Violin?
Vulcan. I don't know. So the idea here, and I'll also put it in the chat too. I like using the chat too. So when we talk about VUCA, we start off with, if my arthritic fingers work, volatile. Okay. And then we talk about uncertainty. If I could spell, that would help. Uncertain or uncertainty, complex or complexity, or ambiguous or ambiguousness. So is that a fair description of your world for the last 7-8 months? See some head nods, some hand raises.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, either the mic's always open, the chat's always open. You can also do the reaction thing and that kind of stuff. So the good news is there's countermeasures that you and the organization can take based on that. So for vision or volatile, the countermeasure is vision, which seems it seems a bit incongruous to say I'm going to spend time on vision when I'm busy putting out today's fires. So the idea is spend some time on vision as a countermeasure for volatility. Spend time with your workforce about understanding, and obviously when we talk about change, context and why really help with the understanding. As a countermeasure for complexity, think about clarity. How can we take something that is big and confusing and boil it down to its essence, okay, providing clarity. And then what seems to be, maybe after pivot, the business buzzword of the year is agility, okay? Everybody wants to be more agile, but in this context, agility is a great countermeasure to ambiguity. So the idea behind this is understanding strategy and how can you as HR, human capital professional, how can you support the changes that are happening in the business? The idea is to think like a business person. There's a lot of HR professionals that's challenged for. I want you to start with this mindset of we're business people who happen to be doing HR rather than HR people who happen to be doing business. Okay. So that's sort of the first profound statement of our program. Think like a business person doing HR. Now, a lot of organizations are pivoting to this new model of HR. Some call it HR 3.0. Some call it people-centered. Others call it people and culture. Whatever you call human resources, and I use that interchangeably, people operations, values and culture, HR, just like I'll use managers and leaders interchangeably. The idea is HR, at least to my generation, it's all right, it's better than personnel. Yet as a consultant, I'm allowed to say younger employees. I used to always have to say less experienced, emerging leaders. But as I think of the younger employees, I think HR has a connotation for them too, that personnel has for more experienced generation, let's say. Whatever you call yourself, you need to link directly to strategy, okay? You have to build tools that support line managers in doing work that you did before, okay? You got to leverage technology. Think about what's going on out there, but if you want to be more strategic, you're in a pivotal position. See, smart people get ahead of me. I always say dogs and kids are all right in meetings. So, but the idea here is if you want to be strategic, we believe you are in a prime position right now to do that as HR. You're in a prime position to improve performance for the workplace, but also for the workforce. So at a minimum, change is more pronounced than ever. It's more critical for you and your teams and your organization to execute and manage. Yet here's another thought for you. We believe at HCI is if you're going to add value, you need to do change with the organization, not to the organization. Too many times change is something that's being done to the organization, okay? So think about, as we go through our program, how can you do change with the organization? And that's really what our time together is all about: adding value, understanding strategy, thinking about your focus, and giving you tools to make positive changes that support the strategy and strengthen culture and improve business results. So with that, I got a 1-minute challenge for you, because I know you know each other to varying degrees. So I'm not going to ask you to go through some awkward introductions or ask you what your favorite candy is or your favorite sport team or that. I just want to find out 3 things in the introduction: your name and position, how long you've been with ATCO, and ask you to describe the change challenge from the pre-work assignment. What is your change challenge? Okay, so 3 basics: name, position, careful with my fingers, how long with ATCO, and then what is your change challenge? So kind of a 1-minute challenge for you with those 3 things. So I just open it up, and whoever wants to start can start.
I'll start.
Thank you, Susan.
My name is Suzanne Schlegel. I'm the manager of HR Information Systems.
Okay.
I've been with ATCO for 30 years. My change challenge is, obviously I've been through a lot of projects while I've been employed with ATCO, so I know how important change management is to projects and the implementation of projects. I'm currently, my team and I, we have a lot of projects that are coming up here in the very near future. We have one starting in a couple of weeks. So my change challenge is to look for meaningful and effective ways to build the change management scope and plan for the project that we are implementing.
Scope and plan, we can do that.
Excellent, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Don't all knock each other. Don't knock each other over to do this.
It's Chris. I can go next.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, my name is Chris Clayton. I've been with ATCO since January, and I'm a senior HR business partner, so still kind of new to the company and the industry. So my change challenge is I'm supporting 2 big projects, both on both sides of the utility business, gas and electric, WAM on both sides, and we're kind of halfway through in one and starting in another. We do have some change support, one through a consultant and one through an internal employee, but both these programs offer or are going to cause massive changes within the organization, both technology, processes, changing jobs, all that kind of stuff. So kind of similar to what Suzanne said, is just looking for more tools and things to help with those projects.
Definitely came to the right place. If you need tools, we got tools. Is Chris, is it kind of a challenge sometimes with a model of change? Do you have any sort of model you're using, or a collection of tools?
No, they are using a model. Okay. And it's, and not to get into too much detail, but we've got sort of the core group, that's the project group that's working on it. But sometimes I think we forget, the farther we get out into the field, the people being affected, sometimes just doesn't fit into the model as easy as we would hope or like. So we have to alter our approach and really kind of think like they think.
Yep, good insight. Excellent. Thank you, ma'am.
I can go. Krista Marshall, I'm a business partner with the Utilities Group, and I've been with ATCO for 4 years. Very similar to Chris, I'm supporting 2 big projects, one on the gas side, one on the electric side, the Customer Information System Replacement Project. So we're sort of in the first stage for electricity and really starting the second stage for gas, but the project is mini projects into one big project and going to span over a couple of years. change challenge, again, very similar to Chris's. It's like $120 million project. It's changing the entire customer information system. Less impacts, I think, internally for us than Chris's project, SWAM, but external change for customers, it likely will happen. We have change teams for both projects, and actually a lot of change people on those change teams. And so they're all mostly consultants, which is fantastic to bring that knowledge to ATCO. A little bit of the challenge, I would say, is ATCOizing the change in OCM. We're using the ProSci model, and I'm finding it, not having a lot of change management experience, very checklisty and very paper driven and process driven and all of that. And I tend to be not as like detailed and processy as I think some of the model is.
Yeah, absolutely. Know the feeling. Thank you, Krista.
I'm happy to go next.
Yeah.
So I'm Annabelle Parsons. I'm an HR business partner for ATCO Australia, looking after the corporate office and the power stations. I've been with ATCO for about 2.5 years, so not too long. My change challenge is, so I am in the early stages, well, pretty much kicking off now, the preparations for our enterprise agreement negotiations with one of our power stations in Adelaide. And I've never been involved in that process before. It's very different from the UK. So we have an agreement in place, but it's obviously renegotiating that for the next term. So yeah, just hoping to get some, I guess, insights into how to approach that, and obviously bring, you know, if there are items that we want to negotiate and change in that, sort of, you know, some tools how we can bring the, you know, the employee reps around potentially on some of the points that we will be discussing at those negotiations.
Excellent. Appreciate you joining us early too. Good morning.
I can go next. My name is Mariko McTavish, and I'm a business partner with ATCO Frontech, and I started in February of this year. I think one of the change challenges would be understanding the change, and then how to effectively communicate that outward. A lot of our business is in camp support. So the staff are all in one camp, and if we make a change, what are the best ways to effectively communicate that change for an encouraged buy-in?
Yeah.
Where we would limit the amount of paranoia that would come across that type of change.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
I can go next. I'm Lauren Connell. I'm a labor relations specialist for ATCO Electric and Gas. And similar a little bit to what Annabelle touched on, I'm, you know, working behind the scenes on lots of change initiatives with the company. But where my role comes in is getting buy-in on change from a union perspective and association perspective. And sometimes that means changes in the collective agreement, and that's a different party to deal with sometimes than our employee base and our managers and what motivates them in change. So I guess that's my challenge, and just looking for some tools that will help with that.
Excellent. Thank you and welcome.
I can go next. So I'm Petra Sykes. I am an advisor on the Employee Resource Center team. And I've been with ATCO since the end of February, so shortly before lockdown. And then I'm involved, just by virtue of my role, I'm involved in a lot of the ERC's project, often leading or lending some form of project management assistance. And I think the biggest challenge we're facing so far is we have high impact, but to multiple stakeholders. So trying to keep everyone abreast of all the changes, and also sometimes trying to socialize new ideas to various stakeholders.
Yeah.
It's communication as a whole.
Yep. Multiple stakeholders. Imagine that. Always a challenge. Thank you, Petra.
I'll go. I'm Kelly Edwards. I am an analyst in the HRIS department.
Yeah.
And I have been with ATCO for 2.5 years. I came in as the project coordinator for Project Cirrus when we moved to the cloud.
Okay.
And I do a lot of work with our Chronos system, which requires a lot of engagement with timekeepers and employees and supporting them there.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that my biggest change challenge is making sure that we're delivering change in a timely manner that's appropriate for the audience. We sometimes get so busy in project mode that we tend to forget about that message and ensuring we're meeting the needs of our end users for all of our systems.
Systems are always a challenge, definitely. Right up there with reductions in force, mergers and acquisitions, systems right up there. So always a challenge. So thank you, Kelly. Appreciate that.
Hi, yeah, I'll go. My name's John Unit. I'm a HR business partner in Australia, so I actually work with Annabelle. I've been with ATCO now for coming up to 3 years. I've always been part of projects, but never really done anything specifically around change management to learn the processes, systems, etc., that would actually help.
Yeah.
So, like with Annabelle, she's doing the EA with her group this year. I will be doing mine with my group next year. So similar a little bit to Annabelle, but there's always little projects that are happening. So it would be good to kind of understand some of the key steps to help with the engagement side of things.
Definitely. All right. Thank you, John, and good morning. Thanks for being early again. Appreciate it.
Yes, sorry, it took me a little while to get in today.
No, I had a job with a company in Montreal, and they insisted on starting at 8 a.m. because there was people in the UK. Of course, that's 6 a.m. in Denver. So I feel your pain, both of you. So thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Keep going.
I can go next.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, my name is Martha Wazelenchuk. I am an HR business rep with the Employee Resource Center. And I have been with ATCO for 9 years now. We've seen an awful lot of change.
Yeah.
Some managed well, some not. So one of the change challenges that I would like to see is just a better way to get support for any of those changes that we're implementing, you know, how to reach everyone that's impacted with all those stakeholders, and different tools that we can implement, you know, between training and emails and virtual meetings. There's so many different tools, you know, what's the best way to reach our stakeholders.
Okay. Excellent. We will definitely dive into that. So great. Thank you, Martha.
Hi, I can go next. It's Judy Aw here.
Judy.
Been with ATCO for 3.5 years, and I lead the HR team at Frontech. I work a lot with our senior operations VP, and we are facing a lot of process improvement, process changes, as well as those supported by technology. And I would like to better help him tell a story of change that connects with all of our employees from the front line all the way to his direct reports, so they understand how that vision is better than the inertia that is always present with resistance to change.
Yes.
And it's sometimes hard to convince, because so many long-term employees have seen so much change before that they believe that if they just sit this one out, it will pass them by. And there's, I think, a lot of opportunity to engage them better, to be active participants, active champions of that change, but we haven't quite figured out the best communication and engagement strategy for that.
Can I ask you a question about storytelling? That seems to me as an operations person to be kind of a nice to have and kind of soft. So is that a skill I can learn? Do I have to be born with that, or how do I tell a story?
Yeah, I think it's something that definitely you can learn, and it's probably one of the best ways of engaging employees, especially those at site and at field levels, is connecting that story to how this will help me and the what's in it for me.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely critical, and I'm glad you brought it up, Judy, because this idea of storytelling we also see with analytics as being one of the real key skills to develop, but then it's hard to convince the left brain people sometimes to do that. So thank you for bringing that up. I thought that was excellent. Appreciate it.
I can
All
go.
right. Who else?
My name is Nicole Kahn. I'm a disability management advisor, and I've been with ATCO for 10 years now. One of the change challenges that I'm currently dealing with is a newer client group. And so we're just in the phase of building our relationship and starting to build that trust. And what I'm finding is resistant personalities to change. Like fix something if it's not broken. So that's something that I'm looking forward to learning how to, learning some strategies with how to deal with those type of personalities.
Are they managers, team leaders, employees? I mean, any sort of cohort there of resistance, or just individuals?
Mostly managers, supervisors that I've been dealing with so far.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, definitely bring that up. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I can go next. My name's Jeff Sterling. I'm with corporate group in labor relations. Been with ATCO for just over 6 years now. And the change challenge that I thought of is how to talk to people about change, and maybe it's in the context of envisioning how things could change. I find quite often in some of the work I do, people have very incremental thinking, especially when they're dealing with, say, incremental changes to systems that have been around for many, many years. And despite my efforts to encourage them to say, well, you know, if you could rewrite the book, what would you make it say? They inevitably say, well, I would change this one word in this one paragraph. So, which is fine, except I don't know that they're really taking my call to action part. So I think there's that is the challenge that I have is getting that imagination and fostering it to build good ideas from which real plans can emerge.
Good, and we're actually going to touch on that too, incremental versus rapid, and so that'll be good. So great, thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you.
I can go next. My name is Channing Steinbring. I am an Employee Resource Center rep as well with Martha. I've been here for 9 years. Time has gone by fast. So my change challenge is really just how to engage kind of the stakeholders on some of the processes that we're changing, and just kind of gain that buy-in that this is kind of just trying to get the gain some buy-in from them, and just looking for kind of like steps and best ways of kind of doing that.
Okay, absolutely, we'll do that. Great, thank you, Channing.
I can jump in.
Okay.
My name's Melissa Jeffrey. I'm a human resources business partner with Corporate and Common Groups. I've been with ATCO for about 6 years. So my change challenge, I guess over the last 8 months or so, we've been working with an external business consultant for a review of our finance and accounting operations. And they've since come back and made some recommendations for us to, redesign our finance and accounting org and kind of implement a new department structure. So the challenge now is working through that org design and the subsequent people changes with each of those VPs. Kind of talking about, you know, some of our VPs are also resistant to those changes. So it's working through with them what truly makes sense for their business and what doesn't, and then working through actually implementing those changes and then doing the change management for the people who are impacted as well.
That's a big one.
It's a big one.
Yes. Like I said, I feel your pain. Yes. Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks.
I can go next.
Yeah, hi. Hi.
I'm Carrie Agard, and I'm a Senior Labor Relations Advisor. I've been with ATCO for just over 3 years. And similar to some of the comments that have been made, I'd say that my biggest challenge is changing how people think about change and their willingness to get on board and not necessarily resist. And that comes from the perspective of working with some of our union partners, as well as how I support some of the HR business partners with the changes that they're working through. There's just a feeling of comfort with how it's always been and resistance to that moving forward. And I'm really looking for some tools on how to help people to change their thinking so that there's excitement and hopefully a little less fear around the concept of change and what that looks and feels like.
Yeah, definitely understand. Thank you, Karen. Get everybody? Who are we missing? I miss anybody, Aaron?
Go yet. My name's Megan Semble. I'm a labor relations specialist supporting the utilities group, as well as recently have taken on like a client group as a business partner. And I'm not sure that I have any specific, I'm not sure if I have any specific goals around change. I think it's, you know, maybe getting up to speed in terms of a common language as I'm coaching leaders. And maybe my goal would be, maybe more sort of coaching in the sense that I find that I like to take a large role in change and sort of push things or put things on the table or whatever it might be. And so, stretching myself to make sure that I'm empowering others to do that. So a little bit more of a taking a hands-off approach and coaching others to lead change or coaching others to coach others, those kinds of things.
Absolutely. Yep. Sounds good. Okay. Let's see. Who am I missed? Did I miss anybody? I know Carol and Phil are going to join us later.
I think we're good. And I think everyone, and if you haven't, please share, but I think we've got everyone from what I can see on the screen.
Good. Yeah, I what's interesting about that is, I hope you heard some things in there that, yes, a lot of people are going through change also, but maybe also some, oh, here comes your first consultant word of the day, synchronicity. But thinking of, not only other people going through that, but thinking of, I like that phrase, a common language. We are model agnostic in a way, but the idea is there's things to draw from on all these different models that are out there. So we'll definitely dig in that. Couple things you'll learn about me is, number one, I spend a lot of time on introductions. I think that's very important to, frame things up. And I am also a big toolkit guy. So I'm going to get you in the toolkit a little bit. If you go back up to the top of the chat, I attached those two documents again, the participant guide and the toolkit. So I'll kind of touch on those. But just a little bit about me. Erin mentioned where I worked for 22 years. It kind of takes the surprise out of that because I can say I work for a company you heard of and you have an opinion about, but I'd like you to think of it as a change story. So I started about a $30 billion company. I did a voluntary early retirement about 10 years ago after 22 years, and it was a $400 billion company. So just my area grew from 10 to 20,000 people, about 5 to 10 billion in revenue, and from about 57 to 107 locations. So, you know, I understand complex change. I've got to deal with a lot of that. My master's is in organizational development from the University of Denver. Been about 6 years with HCI, about 120 courses under my belt, and also taught graduate school for about 5 years. So, but you know, about 30 years of working with change, and I'd like to say I've seen it all, but I really haven't, because something always comes along and you say, I hadn't thought of that, okay? That's what I hope you have over our time together is, I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about this kind of model or this kind of stakeholder analysis or explaining the context or those kind of things. So I hope you'll send me a LinkedIn invitation. My background's out there, but would love for you to be part of my network. I think that's part of what we're doing is, you know, forming a network, a community, if you would, encouraging you to engage and learn and grow. A couple of administrative things. First thing I'd like you to do is if you would, let me flip over my chat here. If you would go to hci.org and set up a free account. And what that will do is that will give you access to things like white papers, podcasts, webinars, research, conferences. And when you get into the website, you'll see a couple things that I'll bring up over the time together. But the first thing that you're going to find in the website that I think is the most important part is a little magnifying glass up on the upper left-hand corner, or left-hand corner. What you're going to find is that we really are a one-stop shop for talent management and human capital. We've got about 225,000 members, and we've been doing this for about 16 years. We do a lot of research. I'll introduce you to some of that later. The other question you might have off the top is about certification. So let me kind of give you the broad brush on the certification. On October 15th, after our last session, you'll get an email from HCI Operations, and there'll be a link to a 40 question certification exam, okay? Now, here's the good part. That the exam itself is open book. It is, it's open book. You have 6 months to do it, 3 attempts. And what happens is you need to get 80% of those 40 questions correct. So 32 or more correct on a raw number basis. And then you will earn the change management and HR certification. So what I'm going to do is a couple things. I'm not going to teach to a test. What I'm going to do is build a certification pathway for you. And over our 8 different sessions, I'm going to place 40 bricks in that pathway. Now, when we get to an important brick, I might stop and say, that's a hand clapper, desk bumper, or something you might want to note. But the idea is I'd like you to kind of stay in a learning orientation and not in a performance orientation. I've had probably 2,000 people go through my courses. I have a high pass rate because I kind of put those bricks in place. But I don't want you to be focused on the test. It's going to take you like 20 minutes to do, open book, piece of cake. So, and you can email me. You've got my email from the welcome. But, you know, if you have any specific questions about that. So, really our time together, want to have a bias for action. I like the 2-hour format. First time I've done it, but I like it. So we'll get through today, probably a lot on change, and we'll get into the first part of the model, which is architect. Then we'll pick up with architect, tomorrow, and then next week in the 2 sessions. In session 5 and 6, the third week, we'll get into the broadcaster, and then in 7 and 8, we'll get into the coach. You have the participant guide. It is fillable, as is the toolkit. If you are someone who types your notes, be sure to save those. I've had people that have exited it. It does not automatically save. I prefer a hard copy for note taking. That's just me. It's up to you. I tend to supervise results and not methods. Some people like to take linear notes. Some people take them separately. But remember, it is an open book thing at the end, but it is also a resource. So what I'd like you to do is highlight 3 pages in the participant guide on the front side, okay? Sticky note, highlight, however you want to do it. Page 107, page 159. Hopefully there's not a 6 in there because my 6 key on my keyboard's acting up. And 223. What those 3 pages are in the participant guide is their action plans. And when you combine those, you come up with one big action plan. Frustrates the heck out of me when you get a facilitator, a meeting leader that says, hey, we've got 20 minutes left. Everybody work on your action plan. That's not the best way to do it in my experience. My experience is to point that out ahead of time, place for you to capture critical notes, and start thinking as we go through the content about your action plan and how you're going to put that into place, okay? And those action plans, they correspond with the A, B, and C of our change management model, okay? So better than spending time at the end of each session. Today and tomorrow, we're going to dig in on your participant guide, page 1 through 51, and page 1 through 12 in the toolkit. So I'll go back and forth. I'll toggle back and forth between those 2 documents. So Wednesdays and Thursdays, 2-hour each session. Probably take a little stretch break in the middle. You know, my Zoom protocol is, I like it when your camera's on, but I understand sometimes it goes off. So that's kind of your call. You know, dogs are a reality. I've got 2 rescues. I got a Basset and a Golden. So you might get to meet them. Probably should tell you, I also have a wife. We call her Client 1. I'm her junior HR advisor. She's been working from home for the last 8 months. You know, so I understand dogs, kids, your work doesn't stop because you're here. Those are the realities. 3 ways to participate in order of preference. Number 1 is open mic. It's always open. Number 2 is chat. So if there's a question that doesn't quite fit in with the flow of things, but you want to get out there that we can come back to, the chat's always open. And then there's actually, you know, some raised hands and some different icons in Zoom that you can use. So with that in mind, I think the only thing before we jump into some content is I think it's critical to recognize up front that there's a pandemic, there's issues. We're going to focus on content and materials. If you want to talk outside of the course about the pandemic, other societal issues, what it's like to be an American, why I should have declared asylum last time I was in Vancouver, why you won't let me back into your country. We can certainly talk about those things outside of the class. You've got my email. And what I like about this format is it gives us about 6 days in between sessions. So it gives you time for reflection. And if you come up with something, email me. If you've got a question about change or anything else, you know, we can kind of dialogue about that in the interim. But I think it's safe to say that COVID-19 has radically changed organizations in HR. You know, if you're interested in supplementing, you know, what you've learned, whether through this program, we have on our website a dedicated resource section of free podcasts and webcasts, research and blogs related to COVID. And I'll share some more of that with you as we go through. Lots of resources out there. So with that, let me shuffle some papers here, pull up a slide deck, and get into some content. So let's see. All right, so you would probably like me to make that full screen, I'm betting. There we go, that's a little better. We actually just switched from Adobe Connect to Zoom, so this is like my third Zoom meeting. So be gentle with me as I futz around with slides and that kind of thing. So still always say, there I go already. Once I said that, boom. So we did the hellos, but we start off by asking just about change. And I think we covered that fairly well in the introductions. But let me ask you to kind of dial out a little bit. And from a broader perspective is, why do organizations change? Either open mic or chat, whichever you're comfortable with. What are some reasons in your experience that organizations change?
Stay current.
Okay, stay current. Stay current with
Systems.
Systems, yep. Workforce.
Workforce. Mm-hmm.
To retain your competitive edge in their industry.
Okay, so definitely as a competitive edge, definitely, yep.
It's to respond to societal change.
Yeah, there's lots of those, aren't there? Whether it's work from home, whether it's, you know, some of the systemic racism things, whether it's politics, whether it's, you know, a pandemic. I mean, yeah.
Technology, yeah.
Technology, definitely. I mean, we're right here doing that. So yeah, lots of changes. Yep. Okay. You know, you think about it, sometimes it's a force to be feared. Some organizations, that's the way they operate. And some it's more of an opportunity to be seized. And I mean, the choice is really in our hands. Yet organizationally, I think the biggest thing that we've seen from a human capital standpoint is companies have really got to change the way that they are responding to talent as far as their experience. So there's another one of those loaded words, experience, that we put out there. You know, we talk about the customer experience, the candidate experience, the employee experience. But the idea is what we've seen high level, the biggest change challenge in organizations, yes, there's systems, yes, there's competition, yes, there's you know, substitutes. But what we have really seen from a people standpoint is the change in the value exchange. The value exchange really used to be time for money. And it's a fairly shallow exchange when you stop and think about it. But employees now are more mobile. They have more choice. The head of LinkedIn, he's described it as tours of duty, that employees will sign up for tours of duty. And no offense to those of us in double digits in our career length, but you don't see that a lot anymore. You know, I don't know if people are going to work for companies for 20, 25, 30 years anymore. Our experience has been employees are looking for more of a portfolio of careers rather than a career portfolio. So think about that, frame that up, because that's huge when we're dealing with the workforce, okay? So what our research has found is really three big reasons that organizations change. They're trying to improve some component within the organization. It's a system, it's the way we do things, it's the way we onboard people, it's the way we develop people, it's the way we do our strategic planning, it's how this department is structured. Also external forces and trends, which a lot of our research and work is focused on. But ultimately, it's to have a positive effect. It says bottom line, but I also think top line. I think on margin, on expenses, whatever it is, but obviously it's to benefit the business, okay? You know, so sometimes it's proactive, sometimes it's reactive, but ultimately it's to drive some element of business results. So when you think of all the kinds of change that are out there that you deal with, there's a list right there. The other thing you'll find out about me, besides I like spending a lot of time on introductions, I'm a big toolkit guy. I refuse to read PowerPoint to adults. And usually I get a little golf clap for that because somebody sat through a meeting recently where they say implementation of new systems, software equipment, restructuring of, I mean, that's a snooze fest. So let me put that out there and ask me, what would you add to that? Because you gave me some great ones in your introductions, but what else would you add to this list as examples of change? Either chat or open mic, whichever you're comfortable with. I mean, I've heard process systems, scope and tools, definitely heard tech, dealing with consultants, dealing with labor relations. Hit me up in the chat. Let me know what else you'd add to the list. I'll put one in there, which I think is huge. Yep, legislation changes. Thank you, Annabelle. Yep. I think culture is a big one. Values, definitely values work. You know, I think we can definitely throw work from home in there. Give me some others. I know that list is not exhaustive. Definitely leadership change. Which one of these might be most disruptive? Yeah, mindset change, Carrie, definitely. Leadership changes again. Are there any of those that are most disruptive from where you sit? The politics, yeah. Yeah, restructures, downsizing, yep. Yeah, my big three and what I've seen and experienced is definitely the downsize and the reduction in force. Definitely mergers and acquisitions, you know, acquiring a new company, and definitely new systems rollout, you know. And what those three things have in common is they're all big bang. They all happen at once, okay? So when you think about those things and how disruptive they are, to productivity, and I see Martha also talks about extra work and job enlargement. When you think about the disruption to productivity, then you think about the disruption to morale that all of these have, but really the downsizing, the mergers, acquisition, new systems rollout. I'm a simple guy, and I spent a career making complex things simple. One of my roles was I was the director of performance improvement, you know, for a good sized company. And that was always my challenge, was to take things that were complicated and make them easy. And, you know, I think when you look at performance, we overcomplicate that, but performance is really a function of productivity and morale. So if your productivity is up, but your morale is down, what kind of place is that to work when people have choices? And if your morale's up, but your productivity's down, starts to sound like a country club. Or Ken Blanchard, who's one of the great management thinkers of all time, called it an occupational hobby. He said, you know, when you see people that go into work and say, I think I'll do this today, I think I'll do that today. You know, you think of how disruptive those things are, though. I think cultural changes also awfully disruptive. And I think we're going through seismic cultural changes right now in society. But But tell me again, what is changing in your organization? You had kind of covered a lot of those in your pre-work, so I think we got a good sense of that through the introductions. But it was interesting to me looking over my notes about the similarities between some of your changes, but also what you said, you know, new processes, models, getting buy-in. I heard the word stakeholders a couple of times, incremental, rapid, you know, changing people's thinking about change, scope and tools. I think Suzanne started us off with process and systems. You know, even Judy mentioned storytelling, translating vision. So it sounds like you're going through a lot of what other large dispersed organizations are going through, okay? So as you think about that, let me introduce you to the first thing that I'd like you to find on the HCI website after you set up that free account. And it's something called a talent pulse. Let me tell you what a talent pulse is. We've got a research arm, and Jenna, who's our VP of research, and her team, they poll the membership every year and say, what would you like us to work on? And they give us their priorities. And I think we just did one on executive presence was one topic. We've done them on strategic workforce planning, what it means like as an HR business. If you're an HR business partner, you definitely want to find the one that's called 4.4, Developing Sustainable Strategic HR. There's one on SWP. I just know them by the numbers, I'm sorry. But the one that we really want to focus on now is Talent Pulse 3.1. So if you went to the website, let me get you the actual title of that. Sorry, you'd think there was a paper explosion in here. This is why they say have a dedicated office, right? Yeah, it's called What's So Hard About Change, or Talent Pulse 3.1. If you go to that magnifying glass on the left side and just type in the words Talent Pulse or What's So Hard About Change, you'll find that. And that's where this information comes from. We reference this numerous times. But to get us started on understanding that Talent Pulse is we went out, we surveyed, I think it was between and we usually do about 400 or 500 organizations. And what they told us that was very interesting was when we said, how many major change efforts have you embarked on in the last 24 months? You can see the largest response is 3 to 5. That was a little encouraging to us. I mean, I come from a performance meritocracy, a performance-based organization. And I mean, I had a lot of great mentors over the years. And one boss, she always told me, you know, if you can't count your major change initiatives on one hand, you're doing too many. And that's from a company with explosive growth, okay? So this was encouraging, yet the 77% was interesting to us. As a whole, my organization is in a state of constant change. Things are constantly shifting. So where would ATCO fall on this? Just in the chat, just kind of, where would you fall on the 1 to 2, 3 to 5, 6 to 10, more than 10? Just put some numbers in the chat. Let's see what kind of consensus we have on this. Number of significant change management initiatives last 24 months. Okay, 6 to 10, yeah. 6 to 10, 10, yeah. Okay. So a lot of change being thrown at you, you know, kind of in that VUCA environment again, when you think about it. Yep, and maybe even a little more than 10. I think a lot of us are experience, thank you, Suzanne, change fatigue. Yeah, you got Zoom fatigue, number 1. You got survey fatigue, number 2, and now you got change fatigue, number 3, okay? So now we're back to mindset and reset on this one because the change ain't going to stop. So I think it's interesting when you look at the number of changes as one, that's the activity side of the equation. But let's look at the results side of the equation, okay? How successful is it? The general rule of thumb that you'll hear a lot, and really the first brick in your certification pathway, that's a brick, not a heart, or a table knocker, or a flagger, or a highlighter. You know, the idea is you'll hear this a lot. 70% of change initiatives fail. And that's actually born out of research. And McKinsey did a study in 2015. We did this Talent Pulse in 2016. We're going to do it again. Our research in 2016 reported 51% of change efforts over the last 24 months were not successful. Even if we take the low end of that range of responses, that's about half of change initiatives failing. What was interesting about this Talent Pulse 3.1 that you'll see if you skim it and look at it is there was no relationship between the size of the organization and if the change efforts were successful or not. So it was not a scope or spread or span issue. But what was also interesting about that was that research showed, regardless of eventual success, fewer than a third of change management initiatives were well received. And, you know, you think about somebody had mentioned the resistance part and coaching, and I think it was Megan had talked about coaching. And, you know, you're always going to have those resistors, and we're definitely going to spend time talking about them. But sometimes you'll hear this, only 30% of change efforts succeed or 70% fail. But let me ask you, either chat or open mic, what's the implication if changes aren't successful? What are some of the implications if changes are not successful? Yeah, definitely engagement. That's a challenge to kind of link that, measure that towards engagement. Yep, inefficiencies. Yep, thank you, Judy. Time, money, wasted capacity. I like that too. So not realizing people's potential. Okay.
Loss of trust.
Loss of trust, definitely. Yep, that's a big one. Yeah, I like that, Jeff. I don't like it. I like that you brought it up. Yeah, I sound really cynical when I say that. I like that. No, they do. They become cynical of change. One of you said in the intro, it's like, maybe I can just wait it out and another one will come around. Yeah, low morale, low performance, low levels of adoption. Absolutely. Yep. Resistance, definitely. Yeah, and it kind of keeps you in a way from executing on the strategy. Definitely keeps you from executing on the strategy and keeps you from moving forward, okay? So as you think about some of those things, yeah, there's opportunity cost. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So yeah, it sounds like you speak from experience on this. You know, you see this resistance to change, especially those of you that support a diverse workforce and that you're not physically there every day. You know, when it comes down to execution, you see varying levels of execution. Okay. So let's hit on a couple more things, and we'll take a short break, just a little stretch break. So when we talk about the keys to success overall, it really starts with mindset, okay? It's not on the slide, but you know how to read. You can look at those. I would add in mindset. And what we always talked about was mindset is important because mindset does a couple things. Mindset drives behavior and behavior drives results, okay? Or if we wanted to make that even simpler, see, do, get. You know, how we see things determines what we do, determines what we get. So that's where the idea of explaining the context of the change, the why of the change, and why it's important, because You know, the bottom line is you're trying to get a large, diverse group to move, and that's difficult. And what exactly is going to make them move is going to be different for each person. So how do you move a large dispersed workforce at scale? I think you show the why, you show the value, you create compelling stories, you know the stakeholders, you segment your workforce. There's a lot that you can do, but the idea is think of it as a process and not an event, okay? So same slide, except the reminder of think of it as a process and not an event. If I had $1 for every time I said that during my career, I'd probably be wealthy. But you know, I used to always say that, oh, your evaluation, it's part of a process, it's not an event. And I mean, you got to mean it when you say it, and this is where you need something to back that up. But if you think of change and what your experience has been is, let's focus on the top half of the equation here, is what do you do well at ATCO around change? Give me some core competencies or things you do well around change. Either open mic or chat, whichever you're comfortable with. Thinking. That's always the awkward thing about the online is, you know, nobody's saying anything. Well, there's a little bit of stimulus response gap where I need to give you some time to think. It's just awkward. Okay, so team support, getting sponsors, excellent. Definitely we're going to spend time talking about sponsorship. Okay, Martha, you hit on the bottom half of the equation there. Or is that sort of a more thing like it's inconsistent and everybody does it differently? Let me put you on the spot, Martha. Either chat or open mic. Communication, yeah.
No, I would say that some things we communicate really well. The change management is successful. There's great buy-in. And then the next thing, it's sort of like comes out of the blue and hits you from behind and you didn't know it was coming. And they didn't ask the right stakeholders.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so in you know, inconsistency in execution of change.
Definitely.
Okay. Yep, starting to change. People use OCM. You'll have to fill me in, Chris, on OCM.
I think we've had when we've done a couple of change things, we've almost had not intentionally, but also kind of almost like a saboteur within the sort of the inconsistency part or the things that have gone wrong, where people in one meeting will go, yeah, agree with that, and then they go out and do something completely different, and it just kind of wrecks the message that you're trying to deliver.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely inconsistency. And you see that in large global dispersed organizations. I mean, I had 13 different markets. I traveled every other week for about 10 years. And, you know, I'd get on the plane, I'd go down there, we'd spend time in, let's say, Phoenix, and we'd go visit 10 locations and we'd see 10 different ways of doing things. And that's why I don't have a lot of hair, because we pulled it out. But what I do have is gray. So, you know, yeah, I mean, it's an inconsistency, but yeah, Petra, definitely understanding change management. And back on McKinsey, one of the things you'll find from them, Boston Consulting Group, most of the consultancies that report on change say a big issue is not having a change management process built into the project. So, yep, realizing we need change, Lauren. Yep, I would think, you know, especially on the labor side, you know, needing support for change. So back on the Talent Pulse 3.1, let me touch on this, leave you with that. We'll just take a little 5-minute stretch here. The most common change challenges that were reported through that research was, number one was resistance from managers and employees. And when we talk about in session 7 and 8 coaching, we use coaching a little differently. I mean, coaching is traditionally to improve performance. We kind of come at it from a vector of let's look at coaching as a way to overcome resistance, okay? So definitely resistance, poor communication or internal marketing. I'm not making a compelling business case, not, painting a good picture, not linking it to strategy. Insufficient training, I guess I'm not supposed to say training either, insufficient development and support for managers and employees. And then prioritization also comes in there. We used to have to do cost benefit analysis, internal rate of return, hurdle rate for every single project that we did because we only have a limited amount of CapEx, et cetera. I don't know that we do as good a job as we can showing the financial benefits of the change. So little food for thought there, but we're going to arm you with some strategies so you don't fall into these blocks there, and focus on how to prevent or address some of the challenges through using effective change management. So let's take 5 and get a stretch, another cup of tea, whatever you need, and we'll come back. So I'll set my timer for 5, and we'll see you back in 5 minutes. And thanks for a great session so far. Back in about a minute, everybody. 1 minute, please. Oh. First day of fall this week, so the sun is changing here. I am in a west-facing office. Suzanne, it looks like you're in an office too.
I am. I'm in the office. Yeah.
And that's not crowded?
It's not crowded at all. There's only like 3 of us here.
So rush hour is not really rush hour.
Nope.
Small blessings of our current situation.
True. It's really easy to get a meeting room.
That's exactly my problem. Is it's easy to get the meeting room. It's hard to get 20 people in a meeting room with a stranger who's going to talk loud and project the whole time. So yeah, things are different. So, well, let me jump back in. I think, John, am I right? Is it like 7, like almost half 7 there in the morning?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. Gotta tell you, I'm not going to pick in. I'm not going to tell you which team, but I've become a big footy fan because there were no sports here for months. And now we've got that, and now the Stanley Cup's come back on. So now I got a hockey game tonight. So, but became a big footy fan. So let's jump back in. So the idea here is we'll touch on the research again, but what I'd like to do is kind of go up the funnel a little bit and get a little bit less granular and talk about change management. Interestingly enough, this is from a book called The People Side of Change. One of the authors is a guy named Tim Creasy. I'll put his name down there, The People Side of Change. And Tim Creasy is actually ProSci's Chief Innovation Officer, Tim, who's one of my connections on LinkedIn. So I followed Tim, and the ProSci work's interesting. We're a little bit more model agnostic, but of course we have our model we'll introduce you to, but I'm definitely by the end of today talk about those different models out there. But this book's interesting. He says, any large change and most small ones are going to have project management. That's about getting the change done. That's about execution. Change management, though, is different than project management because change management is about ensuring long-term results. It's the things you do leading up to the change, during the change, and after the change to ensure the people are willing and able to implement it, okay? So how do you get people to demonstrate new behavior, support new values, use new KSAB, there's more consultant talk, knowledge, skills, aptitude, behavior, okay? How do you engage them around a common and shared vision, but how do you bake that into their work every day? Now, there's a lot of formal definitions out there for change management, including this one up here, which is from the Association of Change Management Professionals. But change management is about getting the right people engaged right up front during each stage of the change, whether you're scoping, you're planning, you're designing, you're implementing, okay? It's not enough just to put a new process out there and expect successful adoption. You've got to get the buy-in, you've got to provide ongoing support. That's the people side of change. And if you look at change failing, that's a huge aspect of it, okay? Interesting book, very brief, about 148 pages, but I think it's important to focus on the people side of change. Those of us that have done business process redesign, and those of us that even remember re-engineering, one of the reasons that business process redesign fails so much is it doesn't address the people side of change. You know, another one is they're working with brownfield instead of greenfield. The other one is they take existing crummy manual processes and create crummy automated processes. But the idea is focusing on people helps lessen resistance and its effects. And HR plays a pivotal role in this. You know, I was told, I guess I can type this word because it almost came out of my mouth, but Erin told me I am not to use this word. But I'm a rule breaker, so I'm going to use it. But since I did it in air quotes, it's a safe space. So it almost came out of my mouth. But the idea is you're enabling and engaging people in change, okay? You know, but the idea is to broaden that focus, okay? So 3 things to me that are critical that aren't on the slide. Number 1 is you got to link it to strategy. If you can't link it to strategy and business results, why the heck are you doing it? Number 2 is it's got to be culturally accurate. It's got to fit in and be in alignment with the way that you do business, okay? And then you need senior leadership support. So here's what I'm going to pound my chest and say, here's what I was great at during my career. I was great at getting senior leadership support. I knew this one, I understood the dynamics. I reported to the EVP for a while. I did the OD. I was a speechwriter for the CEO. I knew the power structures. I knew how things worked. I knew how to get stuff done. And I knew the culture and I knew how to design it so it would be executed. But I don't know that I stopped and thought about link to strategy a lot. We put it out, we shipped. We put it out, we shipped. We put it out, we did another program. If I could go back, my perfect hindsight, looking over my shoulder 10 years later, I would start with strategy. Then I would culturally align it. Then I'd get senior leadership support. So if you want to know one thing that's going to help you get senior leadership support is link it to strategy. Show the financial results. Show the ROI. Do a cost benefit analysis. If you don't know how to do that, find somebody in the organization that will help you do that. Figure out the rate of return. I mean, we're not asking you to calculate net present value or anything like that. We're just asking you to put some meat on the bone of change. And the idea is linking to strategy is really where you should start, okay? Too many of our clients, what we hear from them is change management is about having tools and going through a process and applying it fairly and consistently. The idea is it's not like a recipe where you use certain things in certain amounts in a certain order and you get a guaranteed outcome. You know, it's an ongoing process. It's not a finite set of tasks, okay? Again, same slide, except for you need to change your mindset if it lines up with the top or your partners you support, and think about change management as more like, and it's a bad analogy given our current situation, but we use the salad bar analogy. I saw yesterday, Sizzler went out of business and somebody wrote in one of these snarky blogs of, gee, I miss salad barring. So, but it's more like an a la carte. There's a lot of options. You decide which ones to use, how much to use of each, okay? The right approach then gets specific to the situation. You think of the characteristics of the specific change in the organization, and you keep coming back to it. You don't really go through a salad bar once. You go and you get a lot of stuff, you figure out what you like, and then you go back, okay? So the idea is you keep coming back to it, but change management, even though we have our model, it really is model agnostic. There's a lot of models out there. I'm going to rattle off 15 of them before we're done with our session today. But the idea is a lot of them can be successful in the right circumstances, but they really are just guides, okay? One of my favorite authors, I have to say I love your country and I wish I was still there. Henry Mintzberg, who is out of McGill in Montreal, one of the great thinkers out there. You can follow on LinkedIn. But Mintzberg is famous for saying that models are just ways for managers to organize their thinking. There's nothing written in stone that says you get rewarded by ticking every box on a model, okay? The model needs to change. The model needs to be flexitive, iterative, okay? Our research, what was also interesting out of that Talent Pulse 3.1, the research showed that the more major change management efforts an organization had, the more likely they were to use a model. Great, okay? You got a model built in. That's gonna help, you know, with your success rate or your odds of succeeding. What was interesting though, was those organizations that used models were no more likely to report that they had successful change efforts. So the idea of just having a model doesn't necessarily mean success, okay? You know, true change managers know that tools and models help, but the core of change management is focusing on the people, okay? Now, I'm a bit of a nerd, as you'll find out. You know, the difference between a geek and a nerd. A nerd gets paid for what they do. I love this slide. I mean, love, love, love it, okay? Drive change through people, not people through change. If there was one slide I could grab and blow into a poster and put in the hallway, this would be it. I guess I'd have to put it somewhere else, Suzanne, because only 3 people would see it. But the idea is, I want to turn this into a poster, but I want it to be not just words on a wall. I want it to be behavior in the hall or online. You know, putting people first is the key to change management, but it's not easy. We believe you got to drive change through people instead of trying to force people through a change. And if we're going to continue with the bus analogy, we need to pay a bit of homage to a guy named Jim Collins, who wrote a book called Good to Great. It's hard for me to believe that this book is 20 years old. If you have not read Good to Great, it's still worth a read, because this is where the bus analogy all started, okay? Put people on the bus, take people off the bus, get run over by a bus, etc. But the idea is you start thinking about the bus, you want people to be on the bus with you. You don't want to leave them behind. But who's driving the bus? Is the senior leader driving the bus? Do you have a change sponsor? Did the people get on the bus voluntarily, or were they voluntold? What's the change management team look like? Is it diverse and representative of the organization, different levels, or is it the usual suspects? What does the application of your change model look like? Do you have the classic misuse of something like a Cotter model, where people substitute financials for vision and they substitute PowerPoints for getting collaboration? You know, are there people on the bus staring out the window that can't wait till the ride's over? Or are they excited sitting right up front? What happens when you get a flat tire? Does everyone disappear, or do they turn into a pit crew to help? Okay. It's about making sure the bus is running smoothly, that everyone on it wants to be there, and that people are willing to help navigate and get us to the destination. But there's no magic button to push. And it's just as true when the change isn't planned, or it's more reactive than proactive, okay? What I'd like to do is give you a couple of minutes to do a little reflection on change and introduce you to the toolkit, okay? So here's the first step in change, is thinking about your elevator speech, okay? So 30 to 60 seconds long, the amount of time you might be on an elevator with someone. The goal is to be brief and clear, okay? What would you do? I'm not gonna have you do part 2 because we're online. I'm gonna give you to that as quote unquote homework for this week. But I'd like you to spend about 3 or let's call it 4 minutes individually and just jot down some notes about your elevator speech. How would you explain what change management is to someone in your organization? As you do that, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the toolkit so you can see it. Make sure I'm sharing that. It would help if I shared that. Yes, it looked. Ah, don't want to press that one. Yeah. What you'll find is a pretty detailed table of contents. We'll probably get through about page 12 in the toolkit, 11-12 today. I think that's the elevator speech. So if you like the toolkit, you can do it in there. You can take separate notes wherever you take them. Do about 3 minutes and just jot down some notes about your elevator speech of what is change management at ATCO. Sorry, my chat went away for a minute. The bus book. Take another 2 minutes. Just again, you're not wordsmithing, you're just writing down ideas, big blocks. About another minute, please. Make sure I got my contact information in there for you. Karen had asked if I had an agenda. I said, yeah, but I don't have an agenda for a 2-hour session. So I got a good idea of what a nice break point would be. But I'm going to challenge you between now and tomorrow afternoon to think about this a little bit and what that looks like. Because I think, as Judy mentioned in the chat, I think this is great also for coaching others. But I think from a strategic standpoint, if you can work with your, we call them clients, but your business units, the people you support, and you can get people to do this exercise and put them together, I think that's going to help you build more of a consensus around what change management is. So that's kind of your quote unquote homework between today and tomorrow. But that allows us to spend the time up to the top of the hour, and I'll always respect your time. I've never run long, but is to talk a little bit about some roles. Now, I understand there's more slides in there, but I jumped the gun a little bit. Here is our breakdown of HR's role in change management. So kind of on one page gives you the overview of the rest of our content. We're going to spend tomorrow and then part of the third session talking about architecting and specifically human-centered design, making sure the right people are involved, and assessing readiness and obstacles, and how do you make it sustainable. Then in the, I had planned for the 5th and 6th sessions, or the third week, to really focus on the communication aspect of it. And you have the ability to flip ahead in your books and think about that and find things on the website. But how do you communicate the change, and what are some of the tools you can use, stakeholder analysis, scope tools, those kind of things. And then where it gets really interesting in our last week, our last 2 sessions, we'll talk about the coaching and the reactions to change, and how do you keep people engaged, why do people resist change, etc. So a couple other pages just to reference in the toolkit for today are page 9 and 10. Little detail on ADCAR. I know some of you are ADCAR users, definitely out there, just an overview. There's Cotter's 8-step model. Our research has found about 58% of organizations use one of these 2. And so they tend to be the 2 most popular. I didn't think either one of them worked specifically for us. So we did a different one I'll tell you about. And then also page 11, which is Project Management Institute. So if you have an opportunity to Google Project Management Institute, their model is more around large projects, like large construction projects, system implementations, civil engineering, those kind of things. And, you know, we had grown so much. I did 45 grand openings in 4 years. So, you know, going to a site where we were one of the first people there with a trailer and doing the hiring and seeing the construction planning that went on, it might be very detailed, but project management, great program. I went through it years ago, took the rest of our team through it just because I liked it so much. So kind of just to give us a stop point on the toolkit would be page 12. We'll pick up with that again tomorrow. So let me go back to the slide deck. Okay, so we talked about elevator speech. Back on the results of that research that we did, 63% of respondents said the HR function is responsible for providing significant support for most change initiatives, okay? Now, HR is often involved in change management, that's why you're here, but sometimes you're not involved, and that has an impact, okay? So here's how to read this slide, okay? This slide to me is, if you look at where HR was involved, that there's more likelihood of the project being successful than those where HR is not involved. Of the people that reported a higher percentage of success, more had HR involved than not. So for example, in the companies that reported the least success with change, 0 successful change, none of them had HR involved in their changes. In contrast, companies that had the most successful track record with change, being 76 to 100% successful, that top quartile, were much more likely to report HR being involved than not. And you can obviously see the results right there. Now, another way to look at it, if you take the top 2 groups on the graph, you'll see almost 2/3, 63% of the companies said that when HR is involved, they had success in more than half their change initiatives. And how I did that was just for the math section of our program. What I did was I took the 22% and I took the 41%, and as my old boss used to say, always draw a line down the middle. You're either above the line or below the line. So for those that were above the line, we found there's where the 63% comes from. That's how I got that number. Sorry, I guess I could have typed that, but it's more fun to exercise my arthritic hands. Now, what's even more interesting, if you look at the companies below the line or in the bottom 50%, only 39% of those companies without HR involvement had success in more than half of their change efforts, okay? How I did that was the 33 plus, wait a second. The 33 plus the 6. That's how I got the 39. I wonder if this is my computer. Yeah. Those of you that have a Mac, you know what the spinning beach ball of death is. So I think I got a spinning beach ball of death here. So always a good time. So let me close a document or two. Clear all drawings. Bear with me just for a minute. Come on. Yeah, it doesn't like that. Let me stop the share. Let me stop the share just for a minute. See how I'm doing. My PowerPoint gets a little futzy sometimes. So let me see if I can pull that deck up again. First rule, don't panic. Second rule, be flexible. Third rule, have fun. Okay, so obviously you've demonstrated an impact, and you can cite that research and say, here's what HCI has found. Look at McKinsey, look at Boston Consulting Group. We'll reference them tomorrow. They're doing some really good work around change. And email me if you come up with any thoughts or ideas tomorrow on it. But in our last 10 minutes, where I'd like to get to, if again I can get the computer working, is the idea here is HR has the power to do the things that are on the left side of that slide. You can take specific actions throughout a talent management cycle that increase change success. You can improve how you acquire talent, how you develop talent, how you engage talent. You can improve the way you do strategic workforce planning, okay? You can act as a strategic partner. You can help develop change capabilities, okay? The things you normally do that have an impact on how adaptive to change the organization is. Obviously, you're giving input and guidance on the people side of business changes, but you can also do specific things and drive change management. The essence of this slide, though, is you can influence change effectiveness by helping with the development of change capabilities among your manager population. What we're seeing in the most progressive organizations is we're seeing them incorporate things that HR traditionally did into line manager workflows. That's a huge change for us as a profession. We really deep dive into this on our strategic HR business partner course, but the broad brush of that one is, as you think about what's going on in these progressive organizations, look at how they do feedback, look at how they do performance management, look at how they do coaching. I can give you company after company that has said managers are now responsible for coaching employees. Managers are responsible for giving feedback. Best example, we've got a lot on our website and they've spoken a lot at our conferences, is Adobe. And look at, or Google, or I can send you slides if you're interested, look at a process called Adobe Check-in for probably the most current example of how things HR traditionally did are incorporated into line manager workflows. But the change that HR had to make, HR had to design to support rather than deliver, okay? Look at performance management and what's going on there. But leading change should be something HR does with the organization, not something that you do to the organization. And that's a mindset shift, okay? It should be driven by business needs. It should support leader priorities. But again, this last one's a little tricky, okay? The ownership should really be with the client group, unless it's an HR change. If you're making a large HR system change, you're changing something around talent management. But think about the times where ownership has been misplaced, and think about the success or non-success of that, okay? But it's important not to lose sight of every change initiative should be driven by a business need and measured with a business metric. But it's not your primary role to own organization change, but to foster it throughout the organization and to provide coaching and broadcasting and architecting when it's needed, okay? So again, 3 major things that you're gonna do to support change in the organization. You're gonna help design and plan it, you're gonna communicate about it, and you're gonna encourage adoption, okay? So interestingly enough, as we get into content on the ABC and the architect, broadcaster, and coaching, that's all born out of our research, okay? We're used to wearing many hats. That's true for change management as much as anything else. But, you know, even though the roles are common, a lot of times we don't feel like we're good at change, okay? This next one, again, just kind of give you an overview of what you'll find in that research. Percentage of respondents in that Talent Pulse 3.1 who said they strongly agree or somewhat disagree with the statement, okay? 38%, our HR function effectively designs change initiatives. 52%, our HR function effectively communicates change initiatives. And another 52% effectively coaches employees through change. I don't know about you, but I don't like those numbers. I wouldn't be happy with those numbers if it was my organization. I'd say, let's increase those numbers, okay? And that's where the model comes into play. So we kind of looked at it in the toolkit on page 6. And with page numbers too, I always reference the hard number. So 6, it might be 8 in the PDF. So don't get me wrong when I'm talking about page numbers. So 6 hard copy in the toolkit is similar to this slide right here, but we've kind of conceptualized these competencies to help drive improvement of these numbers as the architect who designs change, the broadcaster who communicates change, and the coach who encourages change. And these are the roles of what's typically needed when change is being implemented. They don't have to be filled by HR, although they often are. They can be done by different people, although a lot of times it's the same person, especially for those of you HR VPs. You know, a lot of times you're wearing all 3 hats at the same time. So again, sometimes multiple people fill the same role and you're working together. But as we go through our course, think about who at ATCO plays these roles or who should be playing them. And even if it's not always HR, understanding the roles helps you as an HR professional being an effective change manager. This one replicates page 6 in the toolkit that we looked at. So it's got under architect our 3 blocks of content. So we'll pick up tomorrow with designing change. We'll talk about design thinking and a human-centered approach, give you some exercises to work on. We'll partner with the business to ensure people are involved, and we'll plan for success specifically about through readiness assessment tools, obstacles. Think about sustainability. How do you make it last? The broadcaster, obviously, this is a big one. You know, communicating it right, communicating it so people understand it, and linking it to strategy. And then the coaching and identifying and addressing individual reactions to change, sort of the dynamics of it on an individual, on a team, on an organization level. So with that in mind, pulling it all together gives us a good place to kind of tie a bow on today and think about ABC as a framework that you can apply and the roles, but the models themselves that are out there tend to be a little too linear. I came from a big Cotter organization. I saw shortcomings in Cotter, okay? Others have ADCAR, you see the shortcomings there. Some might use McKinsey, some might use nudges, PMI, etc. Our research, about 24% Cotter, about 34% of large organizations ADCAR. So that's where that 58% I came up with before was. About 22% use some combination of models, which only adds up to 80%. So then you wonder, what are the other 20% doing? It was surprising to us when we did ask that question directly. 32% said they were using a model, 68% said they weren't. So I wasn't happy with Cotter or any of the other models. I worked with GE and used a model called GE CAP, or GE Change Acceleration Process. Be glad to share that with you or walk you through that if you're interested in it. But kind of brings us right up to almost the top of the hour. Good place to kind of stop today, pick up tomorrow, same bat time, same bat station. And I'd like you to think about your elevator speech. So let's pick up tomorrow with the change management models and the elevator speech. Then we'll spend a lot of tomorrow into human-centered design, dig in a little bit more on nudging and interviewing for empathy and, you know, different things that we can do to make change successful at ATCO. So with that, let me go ahead and just ask collectively questions, comments, concerns.
I think it was a great session today.
Okay.
I've learned a lot already.
Oh, good.
from our brief session. And yeah, it was difficult for me to put together the, to really come up with that elevator speech. So yeah, this will be a good exercise.
That's why I like our format. It gives us some time for reflection rather than say, take 10 minutes and do this. I always tell people, you'll find the content to be a little introspective. A lot of it is kind of mountaintop, lakeside, cottage type activity. So I'd like to give you some time to sit and reflect on those. So, and there's my timer right there. So I'm at the top of the hour. So anybody else before we adjourn? Well, thanks for a great first session. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Ping me if there's anything I can do for you in the interim, and have a great evening.
Good night. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Or a great day in Australia.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think I should have stayed in Melbourne when I was there too. Loved it.
Well, you wouldn't want to be there right now, though.
No? Why that?
No, they've got, yeah, lockdown going on. A lot of cases over there still, so they're the worst in the country at the moment.
Is it right to say Perth is Western Australia? Is that proper? I don't want to offend anybody.
No, that's right. You won't offend us, neither John and I are anyway. So.
It's all right. There aren't many Australians over here anyway. It's always the British and the Scottish.
But my understanding, sorry, and we're done. We're just chatting. But my understanding is that Australia, if you overlaid it, over the US, it's like a 5-hour flight from Sydney to Perth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about right.
And again, I'm thinking in miles and things. So I don't know, 1,500, 1,600 kilometer.
Oh,
far, right?
Not sure.
But it's a flight, right?
Yeah, if you drive it, it's going to take you a few days.
The other thing I've heard is that something like 80% of the population lives on the coast.
Yeah, there's not much
There's not much in between.
It's just what, sheep, cattle, and horses in the middle, and that's about it.
And that Perth is not cheap from what I've heard either. It's fairly expensive.
Yeah, it's quite expensive because we're kind of on our own, sort of on the west as well. It's obviously a bit more difficult to get things in. Sometimes they all come from the eastern states, so I think that doesn't help with the price.
I have one of my true confessions is amidst all the news and I sometimes feel sorry for Canadians. You must feel like you're living upstairs from a meth lab with what's going on in my country. It's embarrassing. But my secret is I love this show on the Home and Garden station. It's called House Hunters. It puts me to sleep for some reason. But they've got this international one. They go to Perth sometimes, and I've seen it. And it looks lovely. I mean, it looks like a really nice size, and it looks like a nice place to live.
Yeah, it's not too big. The city's pretty small, especially in comparison to eastern states. It's quite small.
And you're from the UK originally, and John.
Yeah, same as well.
Okay, where in the UK are you both from?
I'm from Wales.
Okay.
I think the best place to describe is Dover.
Yep. Yeah, my family lived in the UK for 35 years, actually.
Okay.
I was 16 and my father worked on Wall Street and he got an opportunity to go open up an office in London. So he moved the whole family to London when we were teenagers. And the funniest part there is, how hard it is to get your driving license, right? So this is like back in the 70s. I went to the British School of Motoring. I took my tests and all that in my little Austin, and I passed the first time. Both my parents failed. So for a whole summer, I was their chauffeur. It eventually led to a job working in the city as a courier. I drive things around, but yeah, got to go back there often. I haven't been in about 3 or 4 years, but London has changed so much. It was so big and crowded that I want to get out in the country. Family had moved to the Cotswolds eventually.
Nice.
There's still so much of the UK I want to explore. I've been to Scotland, never been to Wales. It's beautiful. And I've never been to Calgary either. Ugh.
I don't like Calgary. I'm in Edmonton.
Oh, you're in Edmonton. Oh. Hey, I saw that they got quite the setup with this hockey bubble thing.
It's true. Yeah.
Are you right downtown there by Rogers?
Yeah.
They were saying that they can there's like this, they showed the Rogers and it just looks phenomenal.
It's amazing.
So like hotels and they got the sun deck with a big screen and all that, but
yeah,
amazing. So
it is. Yeah.
Haven't been there either, so that was on my list. But I joked I should have declared asylum, but I've been to Vancouver, Toronto a couple times, and Ottawa I loved.
Okay. And
this summer the plan, I had a new client in Montreal. We did virtually. Now Calgary, Edmonton virtually, but I've gotten to travel around a bit, and I think they're scared of Americans coming and staying and not wanting to come back because it's different.
Yeah, it is different, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I'd love to explore more up there. So
yeah. Well, right on.
All right. Well, I'll let you get home for dinner. I'll let
you guys have a great day in Australia today.
Thank you.
All right. See you all.
Bye.
Thanks.
Mark.
Bye.
Sorry, Mark.
Yes.
Just had a question. You said that there was the model that you went through. Was it the GE?
Yeah, GE
model. Yeah, I was just intrigued by that one, and I wouldn't mind knowing a little bit more about that.
Sure. Let me see if I got it. Let me see if I've got it in here. Oh, hey, handy dandy. I have a written overview by my buddy Bob there. And I've got a big doc. Can I email you? Would that be all right?
Of course you can. Yeah, of course you can.
Give you something to peruse. Jonathan.unitt@atco.com.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Email chat. I'll email you what Bob sent me. So I was not real happy with our use of Cotter. It was kind of this classic misuse where it was all PowerPoint and executives and usual suspects. So I picked up the phone, and back in my generation, you know, GE was kind of the gold standard. So I said, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm looking for. Let me talk to the dude or dudette in charge of change. And this guy, hi, this is Bob. I'm like, Bob, this is Mark. Here's what I do. He said, interestingly enough, we have a plane coming down there next week. Why not come down and show it to you? And he came and showed it to me. What I liked about it, and you'll see in the verbiage is pretty dense, but you'll see in the model itself. I wish I had the model itself.
That's all right.
No, I've got an overview. If you, let's try it this way. Let's see, images. Ah, there it is. Let's see if I can. Oh. Let me close this puppy. Come on. No, I don't want that. Oh, sorry, there's a lot of mumbling.
That's all right.
And sort of got to stop screen share. Yeah, I use an Apple, so I'm trying to learn their new one. Let me see. Yeah, if you just Google GE cap and look at it from a model standpoint, here's what I liked about it. It moved from the current state to the desired future state. And then it talked about a transition state. And it said, look, we got a current state and we've got a desired future state. And in the transition, there's about 5 things we need to do, whether it's creating the need, the burning platform, deciding on the vision, getting commitment, making it last, monitoring progress. What I liked about it was kind of sandwiched with the leadership part and the systems and the structures. And that from this one's a little cleaner. I'm going to find my deck too. One of the things I didn't offer up today, just because I'm kind of in speed mode, is, thank you for the question though, is when I taught graduate school, I did a lot of decks. So I've got a change management deck that I think has a nice explanation of all 3 of them in there. So let me throw those 2 your way.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
If you think of anything else, just send me an email.
I will do. Thank you for that.
All right.
That's great.
Go have a good day.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.